promise. I think 1.5 to 2 lakh people actually sent in their stuff to us. Winner was chosen. That winner had the promise of working in a real movie produced by Kunal Kohli. That movie is in production. I think at the end of September it might come out. So I think there's work going on. I think there is on Surf Excel we had carried out a similar piece of work. So I think it's going on. Do we need to do more? Yes. I think I'd be the first one to say that in each of these, more experimentation, more effort, and that's how we will become comfortable. And again, I keep saying, who am I to point fingers at someone else? I think the reality is one of the big challenges out here is that leaders in this field or leaders of companies who've got to leadership positions and are taking decisions are often not as comfortable with this technology and what's going on in this space, and therefore don't have first-hand feel and hence reluctant to bet big. I, for example, would not be comfortable with many of the things which are going on, and one of the things that I've taken on this year is to say that I will have a reverse mentoring where I will have a 25-year-old who's just a trainee in the company be my formal mentor and guide as far as the digital space is concerned, and subject myself to exactly what I would do to a 25-year-old in terms of giving projects and assignments and come back and review, and I'd like him to do that for me, because if me and my leadership team don't become a little more comfortable about all of this, how could we take the calls? How could we do this? And I think that's the real challenge. I think the reason we are not moving fast enough is because people in decision making don't have as much of a feel for this. People get to positions of authority and get an experience counts because they've got an understanding of the business drivers and a feel for it. Suddenly what's happening is the drivers of communication and the understanding of value creation is undergoing a change. And if we are not careful, our experience will become irrelevant. And I, for one, would want to take the next 12 months to become a little more digitally savvy, would be the wrong word, at least literate.
So basically you're saying that instead of the wife approving the advertising, the son and daughter will. No, I'm just kidding.
Do.
I'm just kidding. On a very serious note, we have Mr. Proctor here, we have Mr. Cooper here, Mr. Us today, and they're amongst agencies Unilever works with. What are you expecting from them as communication partners, or in terms of media solutions or creative, based on what you presented to us today? And, like you've been very direct, honest, and in some way given us a reality check. I want a very honest answer.
So I think the honest answer is that our media partners and us are on the same page in terms of recognizing the extent of change which is taking place. I think all of us are facing challenges. Within the organization, we are facing challenges of risk. I think the media partners are dealing with a similar challenge in terms of reskilling themselves to address the new reality that we are confronted with. So I think it is not one or the other. I think there's a challenge on both ends in terms of reskilling ourselves. Is there a difference of opinion about the direction of change? No, not at all. We are all on the same page. I think now the task for us is to come together and make this transition as quickly and as we move forward. In this, what are our expectations? I think while the manner in which we communicate is undergoing a change, the need for communication and the role of communication in terms of shaping attitudes and shaping and influencing behavior has not undergone any change whatsoever. That remains unchanged. How we need to do it has undergone a change. And I think I would say in those cases, I would like our communication partners to push the envelope out here and be bold enough to challenge us and egg us along. Answer to this is that I'm not best placed to answer that. Yeah.
You sound like Manmohan Singh now.
Yeah.
I run the country, but I can't change it.
So the answer I would give is as follows to this question. We believe that we need to have a relationship with our partners, whether it's our advertising agencies, our other media partners, etc., which is based on a win-win relationship, which is based on fairness, and it is based on the fact that both sides make a good and reasonable sum of money. I don't know of anyone who would work for you if he did not make money in the long run.
Sure.
So it would be short-sighted and foolish of us to think that we can get away with terms of trade and relationships which are not sustainable in the long run. If there are issues, then I think we can sit across the table and deal with it. It doesn't require a forum like this for us to deal with it.
Sure. Mr. Proctor, you have a question for Mr. Pranjbhai.
Just pick up on that. It's working, yeah? and this is not a question between Mindshare and Unilever, it really isn't, but we were talking before about how 2 weeks ago at Cannes, my boss, Martin Sorrell, met your boss, Paul Polman, on a similar stage. And Paul had just flown overnight, I think, from a meeting that you attended in Harvard. And he walked straight onto the stage. So it's probably quite unfair on Paul, because Martin had time to prepare and Paul didn't. But Martin's first question to Paul was a similar one, which was in general, not about Unilever, but in general, our fear is that our greatest challenge is talent, and the acquisition of talent and the retooling of talent to meet all the challenges which you just laid out. But that what gets in the way is that, in general, procurement departments, procurement leaders, have now really got the, should we say, the upper hand over the marketing people, and that procurement has become, if you like, the friend of short-term gain, but the enemy of long-term marketing strategy. And I wonder if you would like to comment on that.
So if that has happened, it is an unfortunate outcome. So I would be the first one to say that. And if I was to add just one other perspective, I think procurement has a role to play, because efficiency has a role to play, but only a role, not the whole picture. In the end, companies will win not by shaving off a few basis points of that. Companies will win while delivering this, which is what I think is hygiene, but driving effectiveness of our communication that we get to our consumers. The payoff and of that will be substantially higher than anything else. This does not mean that there's a license to spend as much as you want. It must be based on, and we must drive that, but it cannot be procurement at the cost of everything else. That would be foolish. Getting back to this larger issue of remuneration and a partnership, since it's been raised, I would say is, I would like to see a stage where there is greater accountability on both sides. I would like to see a stage where the structure moves from a certain amount which is fixed, but a substantially higher amount which is performance-based and output-driven. And I would have no hesitation in saying that we would pay even more than what we would pay for proven successes. I'd like both people to have a skin in the game as we start moving forward. And I think if we align around these thoughts, I think we can find ways to move forward. But to expect that we'd be reimbursed and we need higher amounts, but it's only based on input metrics and not the output metrics, would be an unfair position, which I wouldn't be one who would support. That's my position on this.
And it's probably corollary to what you said, that marketing and communication is becoming rocket science. It's measurable, it's analytics. So, you probably can put a value to the output and from where it is coming. So probably that's the thinking going behind it.
Yeah, and I'm saying some of it, even if you can't separate between the role of one or the other, as partners we could be jointly responsible. If we are able to deliver performance, I think we have a role to play and everyone's participated. And I would be, like I said, I'm not the one who engages in all of this, but in principle, in all walks with all partners, and within the organization, I'm a supporter of more performance-based remuneration and outcomes. It drives accountability and it raises standards that we set for ourselves, and in the end is good for everyone.
Mr. Cooper, you have a question?
Thank you. I have a question. Unilever has a rich history of creative innovation, both in advertising and across its media activities. Coming out of the Cannes Festival, which is the largest advertising festival in the world, as you know, I just wondered how important you felt that awards were to Unilever here in India.
It would be wrong of me to say that they are, and incorrect to say that they're not important. Yeah? So it's important. But I would much rather have ads which have been proven to be successful in terms of delivering sales. If you could do both, I'd love it. But if you could do one, I'd like ads which get me more business than ads which win awards.
Ideally, there should be no difference.
Ideally, yes. But if there were one, I would choose the one which gave me more business. If I could do both, I'd be delighted.
I'm going to ask you a silly question. Silly in the sense that some people might not agree with me. I was in Cannes and I'm not sure Lynn knows, but I did attend your IPG's Women Leadership Network initiative. And I did hear your views and everybody else's views. Is there a point of view you have, because you had a rich journey in the lever system, when you deal with women colleagues on the other side, in the communication, and do you see a difference? And do you see in India, there's no CEO of Levers India which is a woman, or not many leadership positions have women, But in the agency system, there are many women. So do you see a difference, or do you see agencies nurturing women leadership? Because you worked in London, you worked in UK, better there vis-a-vis India?
So I don't know whether. So I think if the question is there, are there differences between the way women think about issues and the way men think about issues? Yeah, sure, there will be some.
No, but in terms of nurturing, institutional.
And in terms of nurturing, yes, there are some companies who do a far better job at nurturing women talent than others. And as Unilever, we recognize that gender balance, as I would like to call it, is something that we would want to work on. We are in a business where many of our products and brands are consumed by women, and considering the amount of choice and influence that women have, the proportion of women in our business is shorter than what it should be. There are several reasons why I think we need to do so. One of them is the fact, the nature of business that we are in. It's quite shocking at times. We have a joint venture with Kimberly-Clark, and it's shocking. They are in the business of feminine hygiene products, sanitary napkins, diapers, etc. And it's I just find it bizarre that marketing managers and heads of products like these happen to be men. Now, what sort of an understanding are you going to bring to categories like this? And for anyone to say that it doesn't make a difference is bizarre.
Yeah. Prakash wouldn't like that.
Yeah. So, but that's how it is. So we are working. So in my judgment, we want to work towards improving this, and we don't want to work towards it because it's the nice thing to do. It's a nice thing to say around that we need more balance and it's good, etc. I'm simply saying it because, in a very hard-nosed sort of way, the business case for having more women in our organization is very, very strong.
So it's a business imperative, so to say.
No question.
Some more. Mr. Sakuja and then Mr. Rao. Bombay gets precedence. You live in Delhi, sir.
Nitin, you talk about need for engagement, and you also talk about the threat of advertising becoming wallpaper. Firstly, is it your observation as well, because I believe that across the advertising spectrum, whether it's FMCG, telecom, finance products, auto, whatever, do you think there's an over-reliance on share of voice? And it's just that if I'm dominantly present, I'll be heard and therefore registered. And if you feel that, what is the here and now thing that we can do?
Yes, I have a feeling that we are becoming more reliant on share of voice. Part of the reason is it's easy to measure, and people don't want to be bold enough to say I'd go at lower levels and run the risk, because all models of the past have convinced each one. I don't know whether there is it is in someone's self-interest to perpetuate and propagate models which require everyone to advertise and spend more and keep driving share of voice beyond a certain level. So part of it could be that. Part of it is that the models for judging quality of advertising and the impact that we create, and the trade-offs that you can have between high-impact advertising and therefore lower levels of share of voice, etc., are not as robustly determined. We measure this in some ways, but I haven't found people who say that, you know what, this is how you score in terms of the effectiveness of that advertising in the pre-testing, and therefore, contrary to conventional norms that you've got for a piece of communication like this, which requires this amount of OTS, you could go with half of that, or you could go with 2/3 of that. I haven't seen anyone come up with models like this and empirically established it. And I think I would encourage our people and our modeling people and the people who do work in business research, etc., to try and see whether through our past we are able to establish correlations like this and move away from that. The other aspect I would say is because of this whole wallpaper issue which is happening, I am of the view that I think as companies we are not recognizing that there are other areas where real choices are being exercised by consumers, which is out in the market and at the point of purchase. And I think it's been seen to be the unglamorous part of what you do. It's hard, it's going shop to shop, it's about, we keep saying, oh, some merchandising needs to be done, but I think it can be far more sophisticated in terms of making your brand come alive in a store, making the proposition come alive, having a call to action for a consumer in a store, and not enough effort and money and energy is going out there. There are various pieces of research which talk about the proportion or the number of consumers and the percentage of consumers who actually make the choice when they're confronted with the product in the store. So I would move a little more money in that space.
Mr. Rao. Can we have a mic for Mr. Rao?
Yeah, I have one, thanks.